What is happening, everybody? All right, so this is the afterglow, I guess you could say, of installing those TBA Machine idler and tensioner pulleys. Now you've got your tensioner pulley here, an idler there, and another one way down in there, as well as this thermostat housing relocator, I guess you could call it. What it does is it basically brings the housing out a little bit and clocks it down, gets it away from the pulley, and as far as clearance goes, it's a little on the tight side. Get you there, you go. A little bit on the tight side, but once that hose balloons up, engine's rocking back and forth. It's not running into anything down there, so nothing really to sweat. Now, what's the point of all of this? Well, one, is to get a different thermostat in the car. That stock thermostat was driving me nuts. But two, is to get rid of these heavy idler and tensioner pulleys. Thing is, what's hard to convey, obviously, on a video is just there's a certain intuitive physics that you've got with something like this. You wouldn't think they would be as heavy as they are, but you know, this thing is ridiculously heavy. I want to show you too, that's some of the grease coming out from behind it. That is not an indicator of a bad bearing. These are NTN bearings. They're very stout. Obviously there for durability. I'm assuming the weight of this thing is really more of an NVH thing, that noise, vibration, and harshness, but I mean, you can see this thing is pretty stout, and again, this thing, it feels like it's a solid piece of steel, so very heavy. What's odd is that the weight savings on this, everything taken into account, you're looking at a rotating assembly of about 4 pounds, or just shy of 4 pounds, 3.7 pounds less weight. Also, those idler pulleys, that one, and again, the one you cannot see, those are 3-inch pulleys as opposed to the 285 here, and then that is a stock size idler. So bearings are also NTN from TBA. They also use NTN bearings. These bearings are good to 18,000 RPM as opposed to the stock bearing, which I've been told, and after asking around a little bit, these are around 11 to 12,000 RPM. Thing is, though, is you stick your finger in this thing and there ain't no moving around. Quite a bit of stiction in there as far as resistance, whereas these spin relatively freely by comparison. Well, especially by comparison, and just if you were to ask what does a free spinning bearing feel like, that would be it. Certainly not this, but again, long-term durability is probably there on the side of these stock pulleys. Plus, I think once this thing gets spinning, that grease is going to heat up a little bit and probably flow a little bit better, but I can tell you right now, if I spin this any harder than that, I'm coming back with 9 digits. So, at any rate, you're saving about 3 pounds of rotating mass, and if you think about it, you're spinning these things upwards of 14,000 RPM, and on acceleration, you're spinning them from, say, 5,000 RPM to 14,000 RPM pulley speed. So, you can imagine spinning something and accelerating something that combined is about almost 4 pounds to those types of RPMs is going to take a little bit of torque. So at any rate, that's what we're up to. That's what I'm up to with the car. Thermostat is a 180. Any less than that, and it'll throw some codes with the computer. Still running the stock ECU. Unlocked is not an option. This ECU is still locked, by the way. Anyway, tools you're going to need: 13 millimeter socket. You're going to need a 15. You're going to need a torque wrench. I happen to have a 3/8 inch torque wrench. That is an 8 millimeter hex. What that goes into the front of these pulleys. That's the fastener that they use. That bolt is an 8 millimeter hex. Use a 1/2 inch with a 3/8 reducer for that stock tensioner down there. Some Allen wrenches. You're going to need a 5 millimeter Allen for the recessed hex head bolts that mount the adapter to the factory front engine cover. You're going to need some blue Loctite. I like this twist, like this with gel twist is what they call it. Stuff works really nice. Keeps you from making a mess, keeps it from dripping. Some zip ties. I'll get to that in a second. And antifreeze. And what I'm not showing you also is distilled water, but at any rate, you want to make sure it's MS12106. So there you go with that. So Oh, and the other thing you're going to need, 8mm so you can remove air box. All of this is going to have to come off. Your original housing, all this is going to come off and get kind of filleted over to the side. You're going to use the zip ties. Basically, once you get this radiator hose off, I was just zip tying it to whatever I could find over here that would work to zip tie it out of the way, just to hold it out of the way. And here's the trick. So again, 3-inch idler pulleys with a stock size tensioner pulley means that, as opposed to the 285, you have a little bit more tension on this belt, and unless you've got an extra set of hands, it might help you to be able to take your take your wrench, insert it, pull the thing over, and then what I did is I just zip tied the wrench to the thermostat housing to keep tension basically on the tensioner all the way over, and I was able to get underneath the car and pop that pulley back onto the crank pulley. I was having a fit just with alignment and how wide that belt is, with the belt actually all going back on. But obviously got the thing back on, and it's rocking and rolling pretty good. So at any rate, wanted to get you guys up to speed. I don't think I'm forgetting anything, but again, driving impressions. Well, it's not, you're not going to feel that big of a difference. I'm not immune from the placebo effect, but we'll see. The car is going to the drag strip this Friday, weather permitting, so we'll see if it picked up anything. I can't say that I think that it will, but who's to say? I don't know. But the main thing is, again, that intuitive physics thing starts to come into play. These bearings are heavy, the bearings are stiff, the pulleys are heavy. Got to think it's got to be some level of help. And the main reason why I did this was that my lower crank pulley is not pinned, and all this extra inertia with the stock pulleys, and you're having to accelerate those as well as that supercharger. I wanted to try to make it a little bit easier, I guess, for the lower crank pulley. I don't want to have that thing spin on the crank. Not to mention, if it's going to lighten up the load up front, might pick up a little bit in terms of power. When I did the math on it, I think it would pick up like 6 pound-feet of torque. So really not a whole lot worth talking about there. But at any rate, that's what they look like installed. Again, TBA Machine is the manufacturer of the pulleys. NTN makes the bearings. Overall, it was a fun project. Definitely could have gone a little bit easier with an extra set of hands. I did have the car up on ramps, so the loss of coolant wasn't that great. But there you go. Hope that helps you guys out. That's a wrap. Adios.